It's 3 a.m. You are lying in bed doing absolutely nothing wrong. And then, out of nowhere, your brain hits play on a memory from 11 years ago. The thing you said in front of your crush, the text you shouldn't have sent, the joke that landed in complete silence. Your stomach drops. Your face heats up. You physically groan out loud, alone, in the dark, over something that changes nothing about your life today. Psychologists have a name for this: the involuntary autobiographical memory. But that clinical name doesn't explain the strange part. Why does a decade-old embarrassment still feel like it's happening right now? Why does your brain, of all the millions of things you've done, keep reaching for that one? The answer says less about that moment, and more about what your brain thinks its job actually is. Here's the first surprise. Your brain doesn't store memories like a video file. It doesn't hit save and file away an exact recording. Instead, every time you recall something, your brain rebuilds it, using fragments of sensation, emotion, and whatever you currently believe about yourself. That means the cringe you feel isn't a replay. It's a reconstruction, assembled fresh each time, often with the emotional intensity turned up. Scientists classify embarrassment as a self-conscious emotion, in the same family as pride, guilt, and shame. Unlike fear or anger, which respond to outside threats, self-conscious emotions exist entirely because of other people. You don't cringe over a rock falling. You cringe because, in that moment, you believe someone was watching and judging. Which raises the real question: why would evolution wire us to relive judgment that happened over a decade ago? You didn't choose to think about that memory at 3 a.m. It chose you. Psychologists split memory recall into two types: voluntary, like deliberately trying to remember what you had for lunch, and involuntary, memories that simply pop into your mind uninvited. Involuntary memories come from how your brain organizes experience, not as separate files, but as webs of connected neurons. Think of it like a spider web. Touch one strand, and the vibration travels to every strand connected to it. A smell, a tone of voice, even just being tired can brush against a strand connected to an old embarrassing moment. And suddenly the whole web lights up. Here's the deeper reason it happens at all. Your brain treats embarrassing memories as important data. Not because it wants to torture you, because somewhere in that memory is a lesson about social rules it doesn't want you to break again. Here's something strange. You probably can't remember what you had for dinner 4 nights ago, but you can remember, in painful detail, the exact words you fumbled in a hallway a decade ago, the tone of the room, the heat in your face, the silence after. That's not a coincidence. Research shows emotionally charged memories, especially negative ones, get preserved with far more clarity than ordinary ones. And it gets worse. Over time, those memories don't fade evenly. Our minds tend to zoom in on the worst part of an event and give it more weight than it actually had, while the surrounding context, the part where everyone quickly moved on and forgot, fades away. So what you're replaying isn't really an accurate recording. It's a highlight reel edited by your most anxious inner critic, starring the worst 3 seconds, looping forever. There's a deeper reason old embarrassments sting more than recent ones: distance. The you from 11 years ago probably feels like a completely different person. Less mature, less aware, someone you'd barely recognize at a party today. And that's exactly the problem. When a past version of you does something that clashes with who you believe you are now, your brain doesn't file it away peacefully. It creates friction. Psychologists call it dissonance. The uncomfortable tension between "that was me" and "that's not who I am." The bigger the gap between past you and present you, the louder that friction gets. Which means, paradoxically, the more you've grown, the more that old memory might sting. Not because you're still that person, but because some part of you is still working to prove, even to yourself, that you're not. Before you write off cringing as pointless suffering, consider this. Evolutionary biologists link embarrassment directly to survival. Not physical survival, but social survival. For most of human history, being cast out of your group wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. No tribe meant no protection, no food sharing, no safety in numbers. So a brain that flinched hard at "I might have violated a social rule" wasn't broken. It was doing exactly its job, scanning the past for any moment you might have damaged your standing in the group and making sure you never forget the lesson. That single cringing memory is your ancient social alarm system, still wired for a world of small tribes, misfiring in a world of smartphones and 3 a.m. bedrooms. The system isn't defective. It's simply running 20,000-year-old software on hardware it was never designed for. Here's a pattern researchers have found. Your mood acts like a filter on memory itself. It's called mood-congruent memory. When you're feeling low, your brain becomes far more likely to surface memories that match that mood. Old failures, old embarrassments, old rejections. Feeling good rarely triggers a cringe attack. Feeling tired, stressed, or low almost guarantees your brain will reach for the darkest file in the cabinet. This creates a loop psychologists call perseverative thinking, repetitive, hard-to-control cycles of "why did I say that?" replayed over and over, which then worsens the very mood that triggered it in the first place. It's not a coincidence that cringe attacks hit hardest at 3 a.m. when you're exhausted, defenses down, and nothing else is competing for your brain's attention. The timing isn't cruel randomness. It's your mood, quietly handing your brain the exact file it's primed to find. Here's the most useful discovery in all this research. Every time you retrieve a memory, you get a small chance to change how it's stored. Scientists studying memory retrieval found that interrupting the replay, instead of finishing it, can gradually make that memory less vivid, less accessible, over time. That means every time you catch yourself mid-cringe and consciously redirect your attention, you're not suppressing the memory. You're quietly weakening its grip. There's a second, gentler tool too. Humor. Psychologists have found that sharing embarrassing stories out loud, laughing about them with others, actively rewires how threatening they feel, turning my worst moment into simply a funny story I tell. And here's the twist worth remembering. That 3 a.m. cringe you thought was proof something was wrong with you. Research suggests the opposite. Only people with strong social awareness cringe at all. The capacity to cringe is not a flaw. It's evidence your brain still cares, deeply, about being a decent human being to the people around you.